Tell him I got the juice.
Proverbs 22 is where we're at. There's two different texts, Proverbs 22 verse 3 and Proverbs 27 verse 12. Both of these proverbs say literally the same thing, and anything that is repeated in Scripture highlights and screams importance. Okay? Highlights and screams importance. And this is what Proverbs 22:3 and 27:12 read. A prudent man foresees the evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. And I'm typically not one to title what I'm sharing at all, but thanks to YouTube, I have this tendency to do that now. So I'm going to title this "How to Avoid the Unnecessary." Okay, how to avoid the unnecessary. How many of you guys, just a show of hands, can think of decisions you made that you look back and wish you didn't make? Yep, I'm with you. How many of you have made decisions, and when you're kind of going through the penalty of the decision, you're like, I didn't have to go through this at all. Like, this was not even needed. It's not necessary. I actually probably could have got the same lesson I'm getting here without going through this, like completely. And that's kind of one of the first things that comes to mind when I think of this text. And of course, we can dive into the nuances of it in just a few moments. But I like to kind of start us off with an interesting story from your boy, because this is literally what I experienced this past summer. And it was on a great, faithful Saturday morning, July 22nd. Your boy was scheduled to get a haircut. You know, it was looking real rough. It was time to get some freshened up done. I'm coming from Denton. Okay, driving from Denton through to Saginaw. Okay, are you guys familiar with Saginaw, Texas?
You must love your barber.
You know, it was a long way, but it was necessary. At least I thought. Okay, and so I was like, no, I'm not gonna take exit 70. There's no need. Okay, and I have my maps up, and we all know the entire rules. If you're driving, distracted driving. Okay, not it, not the move. Texting and driving, not it, not the move. And you know, I have had many encounters prior to this faithful day of being solemnly reminded that it wasn't the move. Okay, I'm hitting my brakes pretty quick before impact on numerous occasions. You know, being distracted, not paying attention to green lights, all those kinds of things. Just small moments that all compound to this one faithful day. And I am in a little bit of some traffic. Okay, it's slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. And I'm checking my maps. Okay, now granted, I have this handy dandy Apple Watch on. I have no need to check my phone. Okay, I'm just not used to it. So I look down, and it was in a split second. I look down, making sure I'm in my right lane. I look up, and I rear end a car in front of me. Oh. Tough. Oh, God awful. It was worse. Okay, airbags deployed. The car's totaled. Didn't have it. Okay, did some jerking, and you know, I can't really even tell you what all I did in the body motion, because all I'm thinking about is how I just lost my car. Obviously, I'm checking on the passengers in front of me. They're all good, they're healthy, you know, just completely my fault at the total of the wreck. And I go through the rest of the summer dealing with a lumbar sprain, a heavily contused back, and a contusion on my left knee. Injuries that kept me away from things, sidelined, seated, and away for quite some time. Why in the world is a car wreck relevant to the passage of Scripture today? Because there were so many warning shots given, so many opportunities where I could have foreseen the danger ahead and could have avoided it, but didn't, kept going, and paid the penalty. And as much as we read through Scripture, we can look at even wise King Solomon here, who is renownedly known in Scripture and of course across so many other outside texts as the wisest man who ever lived. Okay, we're talking about somebody who had wisdom for days. I mean, the Proverbs is literally that and then some. Ecclesiastes, that and then some. The wisest man in Scripture, who was a king of Israel, of Jerusalem and Judah, and who was so wise that he said, hey, how about we just take a baby and cut it in half? Not to not to assume or suggest the literal terms of cutting the baby in half, but to use it as a way to draw out who was the legitimate mother of the baby who was living. The same Solomon who, in the midst of being given rain, is asking God for wisdom. Out of all things he could have had, he said, I want wisdom in order to judge your people. God blesses him with that and then some. The same Solomon who is giving out this wisdom is the same Solomon who actually would be just as fitting in the description of a fool in this text. Because the same Solomon that we're speaking of is the same one that had 700 wives and 300 concubines, was outside of the camp of Israel, was outside of this congregation of people, God's people, that leads his heart away from God. Now, we do have indication that he possibly could have repented, but we don't truly fully know. However, in the text, we do see that Solomon kind of fits into the description of an individual who gives this wisdom and yet doesn't follow it himself in some kind of capacity, okay? And I'm sure we all can find ourselves in that in one way or another. Where we've given wisdom, we've given advice, it was dope, helped that person, but we just said, forget it, because it's not for me. And in some way, shape, or form, we suffered and paid a penalty. And so I use this story to open us up because much like Solomon, much like myself, hopefully, as you guys are thinking about maybe some incidents and situations, decisions you've made, you found yourself in a situation where you made a decision that you wish you didn't make, and you knew beforehand what the result was going to be, and it was painful. What you went through and the results were excruciating. And you realized that I didn't have to go through this in order to get the lessons that I'm getting out of this entire experience. So let's just look at the context of chapter 22, dive into the context of chapter 27, and then move on from there. And so in Proverbs 22:3, they're speaking of riches quite a bit, and before and after. Okay, riches, a good name, and the fear of the Lord. Okay, a good name is rather to be chosen. Verse 1 tells us great riches and great riches and loving favor, rather than silver and gold, the rich and poor meet together. The Lord is the maker of them all. Okay, that's the first two verses in chapter 22. And then we move forward to the rest of the verses, first 4, 5, or 6 verses, where humility, a good name, fear of the Lord outweighs the riches in comparison. Okay, so there's a little bit of compare and contrast in Proverbs 22:3. This is going to make sense here in just a little bit, but let's take it over to Proverbs 27:12's context, okay, where there's a mentioning of boasting, okay? There's pictures of pride that shows up, not boasting about tomorrow, okay? If we can put that in simple terms, you know, hey, I'm going to go and do this, be here, do that tomorrow. We hear that throughout the scriptures, even later in the New Testament. We're reminded that we ought to respond when the Lord's willing. It's kind of referring to that kind of picture, that tomorrow's never guaranteed, and to be present here, okay? But there's a sense of arrogance that's presented in this individual, in this fool that's described in this context, who boasts about tomorrow. Picture of letting others praise you, okay? This is important too. So there's an elevation of potential pride that takes place. Solomon lets us know that how you respond to when or how people praise you is very important. When people uplift you, when people place you on these types of pedestals into your actions or attitudes, it is a test to see how you're going to respond. Are you going to receive that and allow that to build a huge ego, big airhead, or are you going to respond in humility and not necessarily take it as in this is all you and now you're unstoppable. And so there's some pictures there in Proverbs 27:12. But then there's another one, anger. Anger, this is important as well. There's a picture of anger that is present that leads to a lack of self-control. Anger that, when blown up out of proportion, is very, very difficult for others outside of you to stop. And you yourself being enticed in this anger won't stop, okay? And then finally, hidden love. Okay, this is also a context in here. Hidden love is a created environment that hinders. Okay, open rebuke, 27:5 tells us, is better than secret or hidden love. So there's a compare and contrast to the type of environment that this fool that Solomon is referring to is around. Because typically this fool couldn't remain a fool if open rebuke is present. But he can remain a fool if hidden love is present. But let's just try to make sense of this So outside of the story that we opened up with, now we're given symptoms, okay? Symptoms of a wise individual, a prudent, and symptoms of a simple individual or a foolish individual. And those also fall all in the mix, but then here's some more. And I kind of just want to give you 4 main ones, in all honesty, because we ultimately want to know, how do we avoid the unnecessary? How do we get to the place where we can literally look ahead and avoid the pain at the end of the road that we're traveling? And not just keep going because, well, I'm already here, but be able to have the wisdom to say, I see that now. Now let's make a better decision, turn around for our own good. How do we do that? So here's 4 emotions. I want to give you 4 specific ones. And if you guys, again, if you want more, I'm going to drop these in the, I'm going to call it the Discord with the group me for notes for you guys to have access to look at. But I want you to see these 4 specifically. And we've addressed them a bit here, but I want to give them a little bit more in depth. Anger. This is the first one. This anger is the first emotion that I want you to pay attention to that can put you on the pathway to being the fool that keeps going and pays the penalty. Why anger? Because anger is, one, a secondary emotion. Okay, anger is a secondary emotion. And what's actually layered behind anger is fear, sadness, and anxiety. Okay, so the next time that you see someone angry, or better yet, the next time you get angry, be willing to slow down and pay attention and ask yourself, okay, what am I sad about? What am I in fear of? Or what am I anxious about? And so being on this pathway to just saying, hey, I'm just gonna keep going and paying the penalty, maybe there's something that you're angry about. Maybe there's something that you feel you have been done unjustly about. And you're willing to go take restitution and justice into your own hands. So what does that look like? I don't care what's at the end of the road. I don't care what the consequence is. I don't care about that. What I care about is getting what I believe belongs to me. Restitution and justice, okay? So then there's the anger part, right? That's something to keep in mind that actually puts you on the penalty that you'll pay as a result of going down this road. But then let's also look at impatience, okay? Impatience, that's definitely being in a hurried mindset. Gotta have everything now. In a hurried mindset, you don't necessarily make time to think. There's not enough time to really consider, okay, what is at the end of the road of this decision? Am I going to be appreciative of this same decision tomorrow? Am I going to be appreciative of this same decision come next week, next month, next year? Okay, what's the end goal of this decision I'm trying to make? Does this actually benefit me in the way that I think it will, or is it just going to satisfy this want that I have? Okay, I'm in a hurry to get here. I'm in a hurry to get this job. I'm in a hurry to get this kind of money. I'm in a hurry to get to this platform, this stage. I'm in a hurry to get to this relationship. God help me. I'm in a hurry to get married. I'm in a hurry to have, and do. That didn't sound right, but you got it. I'm in a hurry to have, but in the midst of being hurried, you only think of the short term. Yeah. You only think of the moment. You only think of what's directly in front of you. You never consider, is this something I'm going to look back on now, 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, a year, 6 months, and say, I'm appreciative of this purchase? Here's a good case and example. When you're hungry, I appreciate you. When you're hungry, how many purchases do you make on drive-thrus, Uber Eats, anything, right? Man, I don't know what to do. So what do? You just purchase, you just buy. Mm-hmm. You just slide up there, let me get a two-piece, whatever. I don't know what you ordered, but you get it. And you get plenty of it, okay? And then you're kind of like coming to the end of the week and you're like, well, man, I don't have the money. I don't have it. I don't have this, I don't have that. No, you had it. You were just in a hurry. You were in a hurry to satisfy something that was at the immediate expense. You've been in a hurry to get into a relationship. Man, look at all my friends. They're taken. I'm just third wheeling everywhere I go. I'm tired of that, right? I'm tired of just being the person that don't got nobody on my shoulder to call boo and bae and get the good morning, good night text. You know, get to stay up late. We on FaceTime falling asleep. How cute. How cute. And I don't mean to belittle that because that's crazy. That was me once upon a time. Where that's was something I really wanted the attention, wanted it all. But you're only thinking of the short term, because what you miss is that it's a whole other human being on the other side of that phone, on the other side of that conversation. Somebody who has vision, dreams, somebody who has purpose and assignment for their life, and all we do is think of the moment. So much so that I'm willing to engage in premarital sexual activities in order to just get what I'm wanting in the moment, because that's what I want. That's what we both want. We're here, why not? But you don't think of the long-term consequences. Maybe relationships and food may not be for you, but I'm sure there's something that you can think about where you have operated in a manner of hurriedness and you only thought of the short term, never considered the long term. And so now I'm on the path of doing something I could avoid. Doing something that is going to bring about pain in some kind of way that I could avoid, and actually this action is not necessary for me to learn this lesson. Maybe it's not anger, maybe it's not impatience, but it's pride. Is there any kind of moment where pride kind of gets in the way? You're feeding yourself stories and these narratives that you're bigger and badder than you really are. Maybe you just think you're too cold. You're too good at what you do to lose it. Man, you know who I am? I can't lose that. You know who I am? I can't lose her. Man, you know how good I am at this, brother? Ain't no way she's getting pregnant. Pull-out game, strong. I know y'all heard that. That's weak, it's crazy. Right? But it's pride. Thought I was all that in a bag of chips, bro, I did. But I got there. No, I got humbled severely. I really did think I was that guy. Shoot, I can't drive and look at my maps. What are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? We're looking at maps. I'm just checking the lane. I got it like that. And I look up and my car's gone. In a split second. Pride. So maybe it's not anger, maybe it's not pride, maybe it's not impatience. But here's the fourth one. Maybe it's fear. We covered that a little bit. Fear of missing out. Fear of what others will say and think. You know, believe it or not, I really do believe that everybody in this room, no matter how big or small, no matter what platform or social media space, no matter what that is, you have a calling on your life. You do. You have a calling on your life. God has designed you for this specific season and time of life to do something. Matter of fact, I'll say it like this. Your existence is evidence that this generation needs something your life contains. The question is, what is that? And how are you going to deliver that to those who need it? God has already given you what you need at birth to do what he's called you to do. It might take right people to get connected to get that out of you, but he's already done it, right? And two, by you running away from that and pulling a Jonah, other people are hurting because of that. You have something that is in you, but oftentimes what keeps us from walking into that, I'm afraid of what people I think are close to me will say to me. And so then we got to get to the place where we're considering, well, whose game are we playing? Whose life are we living? Who are we called to serve and obey and live for? Whose opinion and thoughts of us really matter? Because whether or not I do what I'm called to do, they aren't the ones that have to stand in front of God and give an answer to that. That's me. I'm responsible for that. I've made a decision, y'all. I'm going to be honest, I'll leave it alone. I've made the decision that I refuse to give to God the same seed he first planted in me. And it's not multiplied. Instead, it was hidden. Instead, it was thrown away. I just refused it. So maybe it's a fear of missing out. Maybe it's a fear of what others will think. Maybe there's so many other fears of how you think something will go, how you think something won't go, what you're missing out on, all that good stuff. Just fear has a habit of paralyzing us from moving forward to where we really need to be. Here's the synopsis, the summary, the totality of this entire conversation to give you. There's a story, there's the symptoms of both the wise and the fool. We now understand some emotions that can keep us on a path of moving towards something that we don't have to necessarily face in order to get the lessons from it. So what does all of this make sense? Okay, well, I'll give you a few points, I'll give you these last thoughts, and then I'll get out your face. In order to become wise, you don't have to be a fool first. Like, especially because we're a room full of young people in here. I have experienced so many times where people have not taken what I have to share to them to some kind of importance because of my age. You don't know nothing. What are you talking about? And to an extent, hey, you know what? I'll let you have that. I'm gonna let you slide by with that. I'm gonna let you have that. But you really don't know what you're talking about. You ain't experienced a whole lot. And because of that, that always led me to question, well, if I haven't experienced a whole lot, man, like, do I really have a testimony? Do I really know Jesus like I think I do? Because I haven't experienced a lot? Well, I've come to learn, especially through Solomon, who's, again, a phenomenal author in this entire writing, is that I don't have to fall. I don't have to be a fool first to be wise. I don't have to go and dip my toe in all these hot waters in order to learn that it's not something I should do. I don't have to do that. I don't have to have your same testimony to find out Jesus is who he says he is. I don't have to wait till I get gray hairs to become wise. I can move in wisdom in my youth right now. I can experience Jesus in a really positive, strong light right now. No, I won't get it all. And yes, I'm moving by only what I know now, but by his grace, I can still grow. That's what grace makes room for, to grow. I'm not stunted, I'm not stopped, I just continue moving forward. I don't have to be a fool in order to become wise. So I can simply learn from others. That's the answer to not being a fool first. I just need to ask questions. I need to move in curiosity about some things. Hey, listen, you traveled that road that I was thinking about moving towards, and maybe it causes us to be vulnerable with some people that we're close with at first, right? And being vulnerable with the right people, not everybody, because not everybody can contain that. Not everybody has the capacity to handle the stuff that you're going to share with them and the things you need to open up about. But maybe I just need to get around some older people who have experienced life. Maybe it's my parents, maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a coach, but I need to open up to somebody. Asking and learning from the mistakes of others. Because the problem is we think, man, I can go make the same decision you did, and because you ain't half the cat I am, I'm going to have a different outcome than you. I'm going to do better than you. I promise I'm going to do better than you. And then you end up falling on your face too. Here's the second part I want you to see. Because this same context, in a lot of ways, layered underneath, deals with sin. And deals with hidden sin. And deals with a lot of things that we, again, because of impatience, because of hurriedness, because of momentary pleasures, I would rather experience and explore now and deal with the consequences later. We don't really know what the consequences look like, but here's the thing. You can choose the sin, but you cannot choose the consequences.
Good
You
word.
cannot choose the consequences. So you can choose whatever you want to do. Paul says you can do anything you want, but not everything is beneficial. So you really want to get to the place where you're considering. Here's the next point. What am I at risk of losing by participating in what's in front of me? I don't know if we really slow down to ask ourselves that often. We engage in a lot of things that give us pleasure, and it feels good, looks good, so it's gotta be good. It's not good for us though. And so what am I at risk of losing? What am I at risk of losing if I decide to pick up my phone and look at my map while I'm driving? Oh, no brainer. You're gonna lose your car, buddy. And it might not be today, but it's coming. And sometimes you still fall, you still do it, you still do the unnecessary, and boom, you lose it. The worst case scenario happens. And then you're kind of wondering like, well, how did I get here? How did I arrive here? How was this my result? How is this my reality? And you're scratching your head, but then you slowly come to a realization. Here's the last point. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. You made decision after decision, no matter how small or great they were, that compounded one after another. And it ultimately showed up into this big, massive ball of pain that we will scream from the mountaintops, I didn't see it coming. But truth is, you did see it coming, you just chose to ignore it. And that's the truth we don't want to take, because that's a shot at our irresponsibility. That makes us look silly. That makes us look small and weak, but in reality, with a little bit of grace given to the truth that's there, I wasn't paying attention. So where do we go from here? There's an empathetic perspective to this because there's a lot of relatability. One of the things that you should know as you read scripture is that it is impossible to read the scriptures and not see yourself in the midst of this. So I cannot make this about the person that I'm imagining this entire conversation that I could just throw this at and say, hey, I think you should listen to this because I think it's talking to you. Couldn't be talking to me, I think it's talking to you. We need to think about that. It's very relatable because we both played the role of the prudent man and the fool. Both I saw it and got away, and both I saw it and said, I'm the guy, I can handle it, and went through with it. So there's a lot of empathetic perspective to this. Okay, a lot of important understanding in that. Okay, so there's so many emotional directions and passions that we have in us that we just want to go and we want to attack. And so many emotional decisions and wrong turns we take. The mercies and grace of God is what transitions us from trials to triumph. This is what's so beautiful about the God we serve, is that even when we put ourselves in those positions and predicaments, he still meets us with grace. He still says, I'm your father, you're my son, you're my daughter, we're still here. Was this necessary? No. But now we're going to be able to use the instrument that's going to get you to start reflecting on you and the decisions you made that brought you here. And now he's going to use that to transition you into a place after that with grace. With a renewed mind out of that. Added experience, sure. Unnecessary to a degree. Regardless, it's grace that carries you through that. Okay. So then there's the eternal perspective. And honestly, the bigger picture in all of this is that Solomon, in all of his beautiful wisdom that's applicable to us earthly, also had eternal weight. And this eternal weight at the end is that one day, we're going to take our last breath. One day we're going to take our last breath and we're not going to have the opportunity that God so graciously has given us, even in this very moment, to come to have a relationship with him. And the one way that you can see the danger ahead and avoid it is by hearing the gospel of Jesus. That he came and lived a life I couldn't live, died the death I should have died, and resurrected. So that I may have life with him more abundantly and be welcomed into a kingdom I didn't make, a kingdom I don't deserve to be in. To have and spend eternity with my Father. The gospel message is a message that gives us insight to what's to come while having the opportunity to choose him now. Okay? So it's you and I, literally, as I mentioned before, just can't save anyone. And this actually will transition into the other side of this, but we can't save anyone. So we're going to encounter so many people that will hear the message of the gospel and ignore it. And will hear the message of the gospel and keep doing them. And it's God's grace and mercy that is so abundant that we can recognize and take trust in the fact that I don't have to be the one to save this person. I can't save this person. I don't have to be that. Maybe it wasn't with me, but maybe I planted a seed. How can I express Christ in my life to this person today? In this encounter today? When I leave this encounter, can I honestly say, and I'm not saying every conversation has to be about the gospel. I'm not saying you gotta preach John 3:16 to everybody you see. Come on, let's live life alone. Talk about sports, talk about your favorite things, find relatability. But be willing to think about, man, I hope I was able to leave some level of impression of love on this individual. That this person was able to see that this light that is in me is different. And it's not because of anybody that I am, it's because of all who Christ is. And I have a relationship with him. And I want the same for them. And the gospel is that great of a message that I could just be a seed planter. And maybe they don't come to Christ for years. Who knows? But it's a seed planter because some plant, some water, but God ultimately gives the increase. So there's an eternal perspective that at the end of the day, there's a day that comes where this grace that's granted to us, even when we fall on our face here in paying the penalty, there's a time where that grace and mercy will run out and we will have to give an answer for the life that we live. There will come a day for that. And it's just my prayer that we encounter him here and not wait till heaven to experience it. But that we encounter him here because we have an opportunity to experience him in the day-to-day life that we live. And that he gives us the most gracious gift of experience. And life isn't the same without it.
Hey, listen, thank you so much for tuning into this IRL sermon teaching that I did, one of potentially many that will be uploaded to this channel. Please let me know your thoughts, your takeaways, the big points, the things that you got from this message in the comments section below. And if you want to stick around to continue learning how to build healthy, happy, whole, and biblical relationships, we got some more content all over this channel, and I'll see you over there.